to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, January 28th. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Miller.
Here.
Rosato.
Here.
Beck. Knopp.
Here.
Chanzit. Barron.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
O'Brien.
Here.
Callahan.
Here.
Meitzler.
Here.
Malay.
Here.
Ewer. Cerrone.
Here.
And McFadden.
Here. Okay, we have the necessary quorum to conduct business. I did receive email from both Alderman Ewer and Alderman Chanzit that they would not be here. Do not know if Abby is showing up or not. Okay, next up would be a reminder to please speak into the microphone for the recording. We do have all the sound issues figured out and fixed, so we're good. Next up would be approval of the minutes for January 7th, 2020. I do have one correction that we did find on there, that Alderman Salvati was listed as being present when he is no longer a member of this body, and we did not have.
I just missed him.
It's okay. Cut and paste is dangerous.
Please boot him.
So that would be the only notation or change that I have for it. Does anybody else have anything noted? I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes for January 7th as amended.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, seconded by Knopp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up would be items to be removed, added, or changed. Do we have anything?
No.
Okay, move right on to matters from the public for items not on the agenda. Anybody here for something not on the agenda? Okay, we will move on then to the public hearing. We'll open that for an annexation agreement for property at 1203 to 1233 North Washington Avenue. Joel can start us off.
Thank you. Again, this will open a public hearing for consideration of an annexation agreement for annexation of approximately 13 acres of property that's located at 1203 to 1233 North Washington Avenue. And if you want to see if there are speakers, do that first, and then I can fill in the rest after that.
Very fine. Let the record reflect that Alderman Beck has shown up. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this tonight? Okay. If not, then I will close the public hearing, or ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion by O'Brien, second by Callahan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Now it is closed. And we'll move on to item number 7, which is ordinance 20-09, authorizing execution of an annexation agreement for the property located at 1203, 1233 North Washington Avenue. Alderman Callahan.
This is regarding a voluntary petition for Ralph and Sue Ullman, the property owners. They're requesting that their property be zoned R4 for multifamily medium density. It's consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. Joel?
Yes. Again, this is for an approximately 11.3 acre property. And to carry on from what Alderman Callahan was saying, the property owners are not seeking to develop the property at this time. They have voluntarily submitted a petition for annexation along with an agreement. The agreement is triggered by their request to have R4 zoning applied to the property as opposed to the default R0 single-family low density. The Plan Commission held a public hearing for the zoning district portion of this request, and the Plan Commission made findings of fact. Those are included in Ordinance 20-10 that you were given as part of your package this evening. The agreement contains the obligation for the city to annex the property along with the R4 district zoning. It also includes specifications for utility connections, and also that if also for the dedication of right-of-way for Washington Street, and that dedication would take place either with development or if the property is ever sold for open space purposes. Again, we would get that dedication for right-of-way. Again, the Plan Commission did hold the public hearing in November. At the hearing, 3 area residents spoke. They voiced concerns of increased traffic with future multifamily development, and the speaker suggested that multifamily zoning be considered with a development plan. The plan commissioners also commented on potential traffic impacts, but they also noted a variety of zoning districts along North Washington Street, saying that it would be appropriate to consider the R4 district. One of the commissioners also felt that establishing a multifamily zoning district should be or could be considered along with a development plan. But as I mentioned, the Plan Commission did recommend approval of the zoning change. The council has alternatives to, you can execute the annexation agreement and approve the annexing and zoning as proposed. You can choose to not execute the annexation agreement, and thereby the city would not annex the property. You could also provide direction to staff to renegotiate any specific term of the agreement and return with an amended agreement. There would be some impacts to city services. The city, just by the addition of a small piece of land, it wouldn't be a significant impact by any means. The city would realize a very small increase in assessed value with annexation of the property. There would be no impacts to staffing. For the timeline, Cow action this evening will allow for final action by the City Council on February 3rd. And again, the Plan Commission, by a vote of 4-2, recommended approval of the zoning district portion of this proposal, and staff recommends the Cow recommend approval of ordinances 20-09 and 20-10 as presented.
Does anyone have any questions for Joel?
I have one question. I guess you said the owner does not have plans to develop that. What's the motivation then for wanting to have it rezoned?
It is consistent with the comprehensive plan to have that. I know Scott had dealt more closely with the Ullmans, who are the property owners, than I did, but we as staff did accept the petition with the request for R4 zoning.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the agreement for annexation is based on the willingness of rezoning it.
Correct, well, concurrent with the annexation to
Exactly.
apply the R4
So-
district.
So what are the intentions then? Is there intentions to sell the property?
That's my understanding.
At some point, they don't have any plans to sell the property. It's been in their family for over 100 years, but they want to, have that entitlement that's in the comprehensive plan, that if they decide to sell the property at some point in the future, that they could then sell it for that purpose. It would still have to come back to the city for, various approvals for subdivision and everything else as part of that. So it wouldn't be just automatic that they're building an apartment complex or anything like that. So there would still be entitlement stuff that they would have to come back to the city.
Okay.
So I guess just on that note, as we're waiving the traditional annexation, plat preparation, zoning map amendment, and recording fees, what's involved with the zoning map amendment? If they're not even going to be taking advantage of this, why are we processing it and waiving the fees for it?
That was one of the ways that we were able to, we made the initial outreach to annex, and that was one of the things that they said that they would want in order to come in and submit a petition voluntarily.
Yeah, this is one of the surrounded areas, keep in mind. And then we, as we went to discuss some of these properties had a little bit more unique things that were involved with it. If you remember the one that was on Deer Path, a large piece of land that was a single-family residence, but, they had some issues with burning and things like that. So as we've gone into these annexation discussions, certain property owners have had certain requests that they've asked for, and so this is in line with what these folks have asked for in this particular circumstance.
I guess that's a little concern if we've got future annexation and an agenda to annex these islands. Do we want to put the message out there that, okay, you can get something for it? That's just finding it a little concerning that
In most cases, we
Other
don't.
people that have been involuntarily annexed, they haven't gotten, favorable added value, I guess.
Yeah, and it depended on the circumstances. In most cases, the annexations were existing single-family residences, and that was it. So, I mean, there was really nothing that we would be there to offer, essentially. So, when properties have more development potential, we wanted to enter into agreements so that we have a little bit more control for them in the future. So if we annexed this with a straight annexation, we would lose some development control over it. The annexation agreement allows us to have some level of control if it should develop.
The agreement actually specifies that if there is a development proposed, that the agreement has to be renegotiated.
I think, Scott, to correct me if I'm wrong, but what this unique parcel is doing, the request, there have been other parcels out near Holy Cross or a lot of the other utility hookups where we've made the annexation agreements contingent upon certain conditions. So while I would say this, the zoning issue might be different, it's not completely without some precedent.
Exactly, right. I mean, there's a property that's two properties down from here, actually, that we did rezone, the X-Blade property. So we did rezone that to commercial also. So we have made some of those concessions to some of the property owners when they've asked for it.
And a lot of and I understand your concern about the involuntary, but they didn't let us know one way or the other. That's why they went involuntary. It wasn't, they held out for more. They never responded. And other surrounding ones wanted to. And I wouldn't say we're kind of letting the horse out of the barn with this one, because we do want everyone to annex voluntarily because it's a lot easier. But if there were unique circumstances, I think we would kind of do that with the same kind of negotiation for the annexation. And if it was something that would be way outside, it wouldn't even be presented.
Right, exactly.
Artie?
Yes.
I look at this as an opportunity. I mean, even if it costs us the recording fees and stuff to do the rezoning, this is an opportunity to get that to where we wanted it in the comprehensive plan and possibly get somebody ready to sell the property so that they can market it as developable within that envelope. And that's something that could be very beneficial to us from a property tax standpoint. Granted, it's still in Geneva Township. I think is it in Geneva School District or Tavia?
It's in Geneva School District.
Yeah, so I mean, we wouldn't get all of it, but, to be able to get that into a different class so that way you could develop it in a different way would, to me, make more sense for the city.
Are our utilities, are they connected to any of our utilities?
Just water.
Just water? How close are electric, sanitary?
Sanitary is more difficult because of the grade and then capacity in that particular area, so that's going to be more difficult. That's going to be more of a long-term thing we'll have to look at. Electricity, I believe we're right on Washington Avenue there, so.
Would we incur, if they were to develop that property, would we incur costs for bringing anything to it?
No, that's going to be.
That would be all on
developer.
the developer.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I would certainly encourage us to consider this. I kind of know this family from distant times of my life, and I would tell you that I think Mr. Ullman's family has owned this property for well over 100 years. And, it sat there as an opportunity for us to do something there, and I think by annexing it could sweeten the opportunity to draw somebody in there to do the development and the resulting revenue, as Alderman Wolf has already just mentioned. So I think it's really a win-win-win for the city to bring this in. And, have a same family own a piece of property for over 100 years, and then they come and ask you to annex it. That's kind of unique in itself, really, because they're probably more interested in trying to keep the taxes down. But I think they're trying to set themselves up for some future development opportunity here.
Anyone else? Anyone from the public? With that, I will recommend to City Council approval of ordinance 20-09, authorizing the execution of an annexation agreement.
Second.
Motion by Callahan, second by Meitzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, then we will also move on to ordinance 20-10, annexing territory and amending zoning map for property located at 1203 to 1233 North Washington Avenue.
As this was tied to the last ordinance, I move that we approve ordinance 20-10, annexing territory and amending the zoning map for property located at 1203 and 1233 North Washington Avenue.
Second.
Motion by Callahan, second by Knopp. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay. Thank you. Next up will be a presentation on the King County Bike Share Program provided by Kalani.
And actually, tonight we have Ryan Peterson from Kane County Division of Transportation, who is giving the presentation about Kalani tonight. And can you help us out with the pronunciation of their name?
Actually, it's Colony.
Colony.
I get that a lot, so
I know,
I get that a lot as well. Not a problem. Excellent. Mayor, City Council members, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Ryan Peterson. I'm with the Kane County Division of Transportation. As was mentioned, I'm going to be talking tonight about our Kane County Regional Bike Sharing System. So just to update you from the last time I saw you, since then we have chosen a vendor, which is Colony. They're based in Iowa. They have about 25 different systems nationwide. A local system, the most local system is at Northwestern University in Evanston. And we're very excited to partner with them as our vendor, and we hope that you will be part of the system as well. So this is a snapshot of the user app that all the users will see once you log in and try to rent a bike. The transparent red polygon there is the geofence where you can select where you want your stations to be. So rather than having actual physical infrastructure in the ground, you can choose to have just GPS, essentially, zones where people can park their bike. This adds a lot of flexibility because you can easily remove them and add them if you find that a location is not performing as well as you would like, or if you would like to have a temporary event where you would like to have people be able to park bikes at you for a 24 or 48-hour period or however long you want. Say you have a farmer's market or a downtown event, you can just place a temporary geofence around it, and then people can park their bikes and also take bikes from that area as well. And as you can see on the app there, it shows you how long you've been riding. Just so you know that we have decided on our membership rate, which will be $50 for a year, and that gives you unlimited 1-hour rides. So I can take a bike out for 59 minutes, return it to another station, take another bike out for another 59 minutes, return to another station, and I will incur 0 fees if I have that yearly membership. The hourly rates will be $4 an hour for our regular bikes, $9 an hour for our electric bikes, and then we also do $7 a day, and we have weekly and monthly memberships as well. I don't remember those off the top of my head, though. So this is what the bike will look like. This is just a regular standard pedal bike, meaning that as fast as you pedal, that's as fast as the bike will go. It's going to be a 3-speed bike. They're going to be foam airless tires so that there will be really no worries about having flat tires, no worries about popping tires, especially when it gets a little bit colder, but people still want to ride their bikes. That can become an issue as well. So for the standard pedal bike, it is $1,500 a year per bike. And the unique thing about this is that you actually don't need to buy any specific bike racks. The picture here was just a regular bike rack that King City Cycles down in Mississippi branded with their logo and their brand for their bike share system. Batavia can do the same. If you have extra bike racks that you would like to use, those can definitely be used within your station, and so that part of infrastructure is not an added expense as well. You can buy bike racks through Colony themselves, but they just recommend using ones that you already have, and then just adding the branding logos as well. I will also mention that the county is planning on providing signage for each of the stations for each of our partners that decide to take part in the program at no cost to our partners as well. Another really great thing about this is that each bike is equipped with GPS so that there's a lot of data information that you can actually gather. from these bikes. So you're able to tell how long the bike was ridden, the type of bicycle that people are using, the total number of users in the system, trip numbers by day. And for us at the county, it's really great to see where people are riding their bikes. And it would be really good information for the city as well to determine where your highest performing stations are, where underperforming stations are, and also where to put additional bike infrastructure where people are riding and you know that this is, a great place where people actually want to go on their bikes. And this is provided on a monthly basis as well from Colony. And so along with your ridership information, you also get a financial report which shows how much revenue your bikes are generating, as well as a system-wide revenue as well, and any maintenance issues as well that will be provided in your monthly report as well. And it's a very easy dashboard. You can log in at any time and go check out a number of different reports that I mentioned. On the right here, it also shows how many miles your bikes were ridden, how many CO2 emissions were offset through the riding of these bikes, and how many calories were burned from the users who ride your bikes. Just a little bit about Colony. This is actually their location map. They are obviously based in Iowa, so they have a lot of locations there. As you can see, the one closest to us is that Northwestern station, but they are branching out, to other locations, and hopefully by June, our pin will be up there as well on that map. And that's the end of the presentation that Colony provided. I have some other information as well to provide for you. Just to give you a list of municipalities that have committed to participate. So we have South Elgin, Elgin Community College, St. Charles Park District, City of St. Charles, City of Aurora, Montgomery, and Batavia, well, hopefully, have committed to participate in the program, as well as Oswego, Yorkville, the Forest Reserve of Kane County, and the Kane County DOT have committed to join in the second year as well. Just to remind you, the Kane County DOT is providing a $30,000 subsidy for the first year only, and that will be based on the percentage of bikes that each of our partners buy. Just to give you an estimate, if you're looking at getting 4 bikes, which would be a total of $6,000, you're looking at a $2,500 to $3,000 subsidy for those 4 bikes. And then for 8 bikes, obviously, it would double and go to $5,000 to $6,000. And just to give you a brief look at the schedule moving forward, we are expecting orders to be placed to Colony by the end of February so that we can hit our June 1st launch date. And then, in March, we also will start our marketing push, and that's also our deadline to brand the program and find a title sponsor as well. So we've been talking to some larger companies that we're hoping will come in and offset even more of those costs for the program. And that will be the deadline for them to join. As I mentioned, June 1st, the system will launch. Mid-June, we're going to have a launch party as well to kind of get people informed and excited about the program. And then in November and December, the first season will end, and we'll take the bikes in, and Colony will store them at no cost to the partners. And with that, I will open up to any questions that you might have.
Abby?
Is there an age restriction on who can ride a bike and get a membership?
There is, yes. So it's 18 and over.
You said at the beginning that we can make temporary spots.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a limit to how many permanent stations that we can have?
There is not, but you typically do not want to have too many stations because it kind of dilutes the amount of ridership that you actually have, because it might seem great to have so many places where you can park, but if you don't have bikes at those locations, it does remove the value from actually having the amount of bikes. So typically, if you have about 8 bikes, that's about 4 to 5 stations.
8 bikes, 4 to 5 stations is what
Yep.
you recommend?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
about a 2-to-1 ratio. I will also mention that I met with the Batavia Public Library. They are interested in having a station at their location. For the first year, they won't be buying any bikes, but they would like to help participate and help grow bike sharing in Batavia.
Anybody else?
Who maintains the bikes?
That's Colony's responsibility. So part of that $1,500 per bike will get you maintenance and storage. So anytime a bike is damaged, it will be taken to a bike shop to be repaired. Anytime a bike is lost or stolen, it's replaced at no cost to the owners of the bikes. As part of that $1,500 as well, there is insurance, which I know I've gotten a fair amount of questions on. as well as IT support, operations, and marketing as well. It goes into that cost upfront.
Ryan, could you talk a little bit about how the company supports redistribution of the bikes throughout
Sure.
the circuit?
Definitely. So each of your bikes that you buy will be branded as Batavia bikes. And so every time a Batavia bike leaves the city of Batavia or one of your stations, it has to be brought back to Batavia within 48 hours. So you always have the supply of bikes that you have purchased. When it's gone, let's say it goes to Geneva and parks there, you're still generating revenue on those bikes. And so you're still gaining those user fees as well. But Colony is responsible for balancing the bikes so that each of your stations always has a good amount of bikes, or not too many bikes or not too few bikes.
How do they do that?
They have a van.
A van?
Yep.
All right.
So they'll have one full-time employee that's in charge of this system, and so
Okay.
part of their responsibility will be balancing the bikes and marketing the brand and the system.
Okay, so it's an employee that does that?
That's correct.
Then-
Yes.
Your Honor?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to spend most of the day with Ryan in Chicago. He and I were in the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. We had a Council of Mayors meeting in there this day, and he was on the train with me coming back and going out, so we had plenty of time to talk about this. The one issue that had risen itself up in Chicago was the insurance question. And this one, I'm very pleased, he's got all the answers for it, that we're not having these bikes running around without insurance on them, so if somebody gets hit or there's an injury, there's somebody standing in line here to deal with it. That's been a problem with some of the other bike ideas that have been in the region. So I'm pleased that that's there, and I would recommend this. I mean, it sounds like it's a great idea, and I think it's going to catch on, and we'll have quite a bit of participation in Batavia.
Mhm.
You read the list of, almost all of our neighbors, with the exception of one, are actively participating in this at this moment. And because we have the bike trails on both sides of the river in Batavia, we're kind of the circle interchange for the whole system right here, with the bike bridge going across the river and everything else. So this probably could be something that could be quite active if we agree to do it.
Also to that point, the insurance that I did mention, there's a $2 million liability insurance for the user of the bike, for the owners of the bikes, and Colony themselves. That's an industry standard, so that's typically what you'll find with any company that you go through. Unfortunately, the city of Geneva did decide to not participate in the first year. However, the Kane County government is planning on stepping in and having a location either at their courthouse or at the government center in Geneva. We're also working with the UP Railroad to hopefully have a station physically at the Geneva Metro Station.
So would Batavia be like additionally insured? That, if someone were to get injured, I mean, people are going to go after everyone. And so I just want to make, Batavia is not going to be
That is
any
correct.
exposure to that.
That is correct. So as the owner, which would be the city of Batavia, you would be insured as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you provide a timeline for things such as purchasing the racks and purchasing the bikes and
Sure.
those type of things?
So the orders will need to be placed by end of February in order to be there for that June 1st launch. The racks, I don't have a timeline on that, but that'll be a little bit later, so March or April. The bikes should be delivered in April or May, and then we will physically place them into their station locations a week before the launch in late May. The June 1st is our soft launch. So that's when people can start riding these bikes, and then, like I said, mid-June is when we have our big launch party. Location to be determined, but we'll start spreading more, information and some more marketing about the program.
How are the stations decided on their locations?
So each municipality will decide where they would like their station. Colony will suggest, if there's a better location to have it. Typically, you want it near a regional trail, near a transit center, not near a high-speed or highly frequented road. And so those are typically the locations that we look for. So, along parks in Batavia, along the Fox River Trail, excellent location, things like that.
I think it's a very interesting idea. I'd like to see us do it, and I think I'd like to say if we did it, go for a year and then evaluate it after a year, after the first year, see, do we want to keep going it, do we want to expand it, do we want to get rid of it, what do we want to do? I think for 1 year, I think I'd like to see us try it.
And just as a reminder, we have $13,000 in our 2020 budget for this plan.
So we could do more than 8 bikes. I think that would be interesting to figure out what, with the rebate or whatever they think we can get back on it, how many we could get, because I think the more we have, the more apt it is to be a more utilized program that will benefit everybody. And we can convince Geneva to do it.
I'm just so happy it's not limited to one station. That was my big fear, that it would be something, and the logical place would be to put it downtown near the river or near the bike path, and it would become something that was only for recreational use. But the fact that we could have separate stations connect to the east and the west sides and kind of fill in that that transit gap, that last mile kind of situation that we probably have with people that take pace up and down Randall or take it up down 31, but still have to get to our industrial park to kind of fill in that gap and have stations closer to populations that need it, that might need a quick trip into town. That's fantastic. I'm just really excited about that ability.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of being able to get one in downtown, leave it at the train station, and then can you find just as a question, if you were on your way home on a train and you wanted to see if there was a bike at the train station, will that show up on the app so you can find it there?
It will. It'll show you each location and how many bikes are there.
And I think
the
that's
type of bike as
that's the great thing. And
Yeah.
it's nice out. You don't have to
Go
worry
find an
about trying to
empty
find a
rack.
ride. You don't have to have somebody Uber you. I mean, it's just, to me, there's so many more possibilities with them in those locations.
We were talking to people in Amsterdam. There was a huge bike rack system near the train, and they were saying a lot of people own 2 bikes, so they have a bike that they leave at the train station, take the train somewhere, get on their other bike, take it to work, get on the train, bike, come back. And I'm like,
And I typically will tell people, if you have one station in your city, people are most likely going to leave your city, but if you have 2 stations, they will ride. They have the ability to ride within your municipality. So keep that in mind as well, but it sounds like you have that covered.
One question, the pedal bikes were 1,500, how much are they electric?
oh yeah,
1,800.
1,800, are there?
some of those are nice.
Plans for, have any of the other municipalities talked about?
South Elgin is going to be purchasing at least one e-bike.
Okay.
So those are pedal assist bikes, so they're not a throttle like a motorcycle.
Okay.
Once you start pedaling, the motor can kick in and can go up to 15 miles an hour. And so it does help, with the hilly terrain of the Fox River Trail. I definitely recommend it for people with limited mobility, senior citizens who still want to get out and ride but don't have quite the strength to pedal along the Fox River Trail. So those are great for those situations.
So it's more like an electric assist.
Yes, that is correct.
It's great for if you don't want to be super sweaty when you walk into a meeting.
Yeah. I was
Just
wondering how you
saying.
go that fast.
Recommend.
With some experience there? Or you have 2 kids in front of you?
2 or 3.
In addition to Kane County looking for a large sponsor for the program, there is also the ability for the local municipalities to have sponsorship as well to defray our costs.
Yes. So you have, I believe, 6 locations on the bike itself to put sponsors. So you have each of the wheel hubs on both sides, and then you have 2 spots on the basket. Typically, we recommend putting the sponsor logo on the basket. So in this case, the City of Batavia on the basket. And then restaurants, bars, local institutions, organizations would be great sponsors for this as well. We recommend, however much the bike costs, just divide that by the amount of sponsorship locations you have on the bike, and that's so you break even on the bike essentially, and that's how we recommend going after sponsors, and that's something Colony can help you with, and myself as well.
And did I hear you correctly that with the different stations you can move them? So if we have a special event coming up, we can put everything right at downtown.
Yes, so that is correct. So I know you guys have a lot of farmers markets, a really great Main Street organization as well. So let's say there's a Saturday morning and you want to put a bike station there. You can do that as long as you give Colony, I think, 48 hours notice, and they will simply place a temporary geofence, and they can place a temporary sign that says you can park the bikes here for the event.
And all that cost is covered in the $1,500.
That is correct, yes. So anytime you want to move a permanent station or add a temporary station, that is completely covered. It's simply just dragging a mouse for Colony, so it's a very simple process.
You still have to have someone in a van driving there to do it.
Oh, you mean
Sign.
moving the bikes?
Yeah, oh, just the stations, okay.
Yeah, so you can move the bikes as well, but you'd have to be from a station you already own.
Right.
But yeah, simply, it's a very easy process to add and take away the stations.
Excellent.
Any other comments or questions? Do we want to
I
proceed?
need one at my house,
You have to walk from your house to the station to get the bike.
not with my new job.
Yeah. So I guess we have $13,000 in the budget. I think we should try to figure out whatever the maximum is we could do with that, including with the rebate, so that way we get the biggest kick for this. I think this is something that can really pay off, and I think it's a great thing for us to do.
So we'll bring this back for a discussion about the specific location, number of locations, number of bikes, and a discussion on how we can maximize reducing our costs on it to increase the number of bikes that we can have in the system. So we'll bring that back in a couple of weeks.
And we have to have a decision made by February 28th.
That is correct, yes. So you can increase the amount of bikes throughout the season, but it's about a 3-month period from when you order a bike to when it's actually out. So there is a little bit of lead time there. So yeah, about end of February is when we're looking at hopefully having all those orders placed. If you do decide to add the bikes, they'll just be placed, but it'll just be later on.
I was just going to say the timing with kind of the boardwalk shops, it might be like the perfect time for it to kick that off and the shops off all at once.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be a great way to introduce it.
Yep. Another selling point for vendors.
When the first farmer's market is May 30th,
Yeah.
which is a day before your soft launch, would it be possible to have them a day early?
Absolutely not. I'm just kidding. No, yeah, we can work something out. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
very much,
Thank you so
Ryan.
much.
Next up will be item number 10, Resolution 20-017R, considering a gateway improvement grant for Energy City Brewing at 917 First Street, a new commercial sign. Alderman Callahan?
So this is Resolution 20-17-R, awarding a gateway improvement grant for the matching grant for the purposes of providing assistance to Energy City Brewing in the purchase and installation of a new street sign at 917 First Street. This goes hand in hand with the money that we were establishing the gateway program to begin with. Chris?
Yes, thank you. Trying to find there it is. Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Alderman Callahan. A couple things before we start. My memo indicates that the grant amount requested and to be authorized by the resolution is $560, but it's actually $506. So that was somewhat of a spoonerism numerically, I guess. But in the resolution and also the allied agreement, it does show the actual number 506, so that's accurate. Okay, so what we're having here is Energy City Brewing, which you know is a Batavia company, and Heidi Files, one of the owners, is here tonight to answer any questions once I introduce the project. And they have moved from their location that you see on the screen, actually, the former location underneath Limestone. In fact, if you look closely, I think one of the usual suspects is in line there.
It's the guy in the beard,
Yeah, the guy with the beard, yeah.
with the Bears hat.
That's actually 2 days before they opened, he was waiting there. But anyways, and also on the lower right, just to introduce you, if you don't know them, that is Heidi and David Files. I've known Heidi for, I guess, about 20 years now. And she's a friend, and I couldn't be happier about the success of their business. It's a really cool entrepreneurial move by a local young couple, and you know, they have a nice family, and they're living in Batavia. And it's great that they found this new location, which is at 917 First Street, which I identified on the map with the star. If you look at the areas bounded by the red boundary lines, are the perimeter gateway areas that were designated last year as eligible for this new Gateway Improvement Program grant. So the yellow that you see are the 2 TIF districts. Well, actually, there are several TIF districts there, but the 4 active TIF districts in town. And you'll see that this property is just outside of TIF 4, just west of Van Norwick on First Street. It's the old Kraft Plumbing building. It's now owned by BEI, and they're a tenant in that building on the easterly portion of the building. Here you see the sign that's being proposed. It's black and white. It's in 2 panels. Obviously, those panels will be put together when it's on the building, which is what's reflected underneath there. So from a street view, at 917, that's the new sign. That really will obviously heighten their visibility to the passersby and kind of get their logo out there in front of, everyone that wants to know where they're at. It's certainly more prominent than the lower level behind the building, although that was kind of cool in downtown. This is also a great spot. It's a kind of a conversion of a more industrial type use. The ideal hope is to get a tasting room in there, but I'll let Heidi talk about that. So the signage in question is about 16 feet long by 3 feet in height. And with respect to the financials associated with this grant, the total cost of fabrication and installation of the sign is just over $1,000, and the grant request is about 50% of that. So the recommendation here is that the Committee of the Whole recommend to the City Council approval of Resolution 20-017-R, awarding a Gateway Improvement Program commercial sign grant to Energy City Brewing in the amount of $506, or 50% of the total cost, whichever is a lesser amount. Again, the staff is recommending it. It's one of the principal purposes of our Gateway Improvement Program to enhance both the visibility and, in this case, identification of our businesses that are kind of at the outskirts of town. So we're hoping to talk to Heidi and David later about possibly additional perimeter work around their property, but I'll turn it over to Heidi now.
I'm just here if you have any questions or about the grant application, which I'm very grateful that you'll consider, or just any general questions if you're interested.
Anyone?
When's the next step?
The next step.
Rest of the building, brew pub,
So we've
like a walk over there.
we do have plans for a tasting room, but limited hours. If you've ever been to Penn Row, it's kind of a similar situation. Maybe not open even as often. We're open 3 hours a month right now. We've had a couple of pop-up events. We've been really well received from our neighbors so far. If we have a tap room, which we do have a building, well, we just got our building permit today to install some sinks. We need sinks so we can have glassware. If we do have the tasting room, it's going to be pretty limited hours. But we've had a lot of success in Batavia. We've dealt with the city numerous times for different applications or reviews, and it's been all super positive, and we've had just great community support, and we felt very welcomed here and happy to be here. So we have a distribution of over a couple hundred stores right now. We go all the way up to Antioch. That's as far north as we're going right now. Well, we self-distribute. And then we go as far south as Springfield, Peoria, Champaign, into the city of Chicago, and as far west as Dixon. We also send some beer out to a company in Seattle, Washington, where they have kind of a social media phone app for beer, and we have a ship to retailers license in Washington State, so we ship it to them, and they're considered a retailer, and they send it out across the country. And then we also just got a license for the state of Arizona, actually, to ship to Arizona, and we're looking into some other states. So it's been an interesting process, especially since I've worked in government for 21 years. And we had the fortune to be connected with the Fox Valley Entrepreneurship Center, and the Wabansie Small Business Development Center, so the Fox Valley Entrepreneurship Center is a nonprofit that helps small businesses in the Fox Valley area, and the Wabansie and most of the colleges have these support development centers where they'll help new businesses. So we kind of got like our MBA by fire with these wonderful nonprofit groups, and so we've been really fortunate so far.
So on this one, I can't say how just absolutely amazing it has been watching this from the very beginning.
Thank you.
Even that first little glimpse in the discussions about, hey, do you think this would ever, to kind of the jokes about becoming beer barons and remembering the rest of us, kind of how it's grown, how smart it's been, how successful it's been.
Thank you.
You know, we didn't need any dispensaries of Raising Cane's. We had our own first person here. It all started, so.
Well, we couldn't have done it without, honestly, a lot of support. And, started with the city of Batavia being so welcoming, and then, looking at your liquor license and creating a nano brewery category, and really just felt like from the get-go that this was the place this is the place for us. And now we're a block away. So from our houses to the brewery. So literally a block away.
That's nice.
It
Well,
is.
just
It's a
happened
nice
to be a
place.
test subject before this ever started in the company.
So,
Anyone have any questions? Anyone from the public? With that, I recommend approval to City Council. Resolution 20-017-R, awarding a grant improvement program grant funds to Energy City Brewing at 917 First Street.
Second.
Motion
by Callahan, second by Meitzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion
Thank you very
carries.
much. Yeah. We're open this Saturday from 11 till 2. It's going to be big.
Chairman Wolf,
Yes.
want this on the consent or on the open agenda?
I think we should talk about it on the agenda, so that way we can get it back out in front of the public again after they've moved, and just give them a little airtime.
Can you, if we're going to talk about it, can you let us know how much has been spent out of the grant improvement?
Sure.
How many people have, and just where we are?
This is the first grant we've issued this year,
Right.
but we've issued 2 other grants in the past, and I'll get you, or 2 other applications and 1 grant in the past, so I'll get you that information.
Just so we're talking about that and how much is left and
Sure,
get people to apply.
no problem.
All right. Next up will be item 11, ordinance 20-11, approving a conditional use permit for video gambling establishment in the general commercial district Funway at 1335 South River Street, City Entertainment applicant.
This is the follow-up to previous discussions that we have had on this. I'll just let Joel run in with this.
Sure, yeah. As you may recall, there was some discussions late last year about amending the liquor code, or the gambling or gaming regulations to allow the E3 license holders, which are essentially bowling alleys and amusement establishments, to allow video gaming on premises. So that discussion occurred last year. After that change occurred with the ordinance last year, Windmill City Entertainment, or Bob Hansen, on behalf of Windmill City Entertainment, and who's known to most folks as Funway, did apply for conditional use, which is required as part of the, separate from the licensing procedure. There's a zoning requirement that a conditional use is necessary, essentially to evaluate each location and provide conditions of approval, or the opportunity to put conditions of approval on that particular use in our different business districts. So the Funway is proposing to place the gaming area essentially in the bar on the lower level, where by the bowling alley. It would be monitored by staff, the staff bartender on duty at the time, and there would be closed circuit television monitoring through cameras. The space would also have a lockable door, so essentially when there's events that, school events or events that during liquor service hours, that area can be closed and locked. So the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing. They did recommend approval. There was a discussion about the number of terminals or local ordinance only allows 5. The state did recently change the state law to allow 6. So the stricter those 2 numbers would always remain in effect. But the Plan Commission, like I said, did find in the affirmative and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of this particular conditional use. And it was subject to some of the conditions that were listed in the ordinance, essentially that limit it to Windmill City Entertainment, and there's some licensing procedures, and it does require that basically it remain in the space that was in the permit application, and that it has to be, the operation can only occur during the liquor hours, which is reflective of our ordinance as well. So that is the recommendation. In terms of impacts, there would be the collection of revenue through the gaming revenue through the state. There was no impacts to staff or city services that were identified. So staff is recommending approval consistent with the Plan Commission recommendation of Ordinance 2011 as presented today.
I know there's probably going to be some comments about this, but does anybody have any questions for Drew? Does anyone from the public have any questions? Does the applicant wish to speak? Okay. If you wanted to. Right. Anyone wish to say anything?
Well, I'll speak. As you know, I haven't always been real friendly toward video poker, or video machines, I guess I'll call it. But on this one, there's a couple that are pending in town right now that I think we have to give serious consideration to support, this being one of them. Number one, for many, many, many years during my administration here, we've been battling issues of condition of property on South River Street. And we got a lot of it down there still that's in pretty rough shape. And it's almost disgraceful when you ride by some of that stuff that's down there. But along comes Bob Hanson, and Bob, has done, in my opinion, a tremendous job of greatly enhancing his property. He has reached into his pocket and bought additional property next to him, which was in really sad shape and was a kind of a negative on the community. And so I just take my hat off to him for the job he's done down there. His record certainly with the city staff, the police department specifically, has been very good. Total cooperation, total support. He gets customers from a wide-ranging area throughout the region that come to Batavia specifically to participate in the various facilities that he has down there. And I'm hard-pressed to think of a negative thing to say about what's going on there. I know that his recent acquisitions of the property to the south of where he originally was cost him a lot of money, and I'm sure this is just one of the hedges he's trying to put into the game to try to recapture some of that money. I look on this differently than somebody coming in here and saying, well, I just want to throw this into a storefront and open up a place where I can induce people to come in and play machines. This one, I would suggest, has got a wide variety of people coming in, and he's also made, obviously, some very strong steps to keep the kids from being accessible to this. So I have nothing but good to say about this one. There's another one, too, that I'm going to tell you I think we should support. We've got a downtown restaurant that is going to announce that they are going to be expanding at their location. And they haven't been here all that long, but they've got a rolling business, and they've filed an application with us to put in a small machine area, too. It's Riverside Pizza. And so they're going to be coming in. And again, I would say that those folks are doing a tremendous job of bringing people into downtown Batavia. I think we as the city council have to send the message here that if you're a business and you show us that you are responsible and you are cautious on how you handle this situation and that you're going to ensure us that this doesn't become something that becomes problematic for us, which I think both Bob and the folks over at Riverside can do, I would strongly support these because I think they really speak well about where we want Batavia to go in the future as far as growing business and having business come in here and expand on site and add to the prominence and the opportunities available for the business community in our town.
Anyone else?
Ditto.
I think I will fully agree with that because I also was not in favor of when the first video gaming was coming in due to the concerns about proliferation and how many it was going to go. I think that was addressed with some of the constraints that we did put in later by the number that were allowed and the cost that were part of it. And I also equate this to other legal businesses that we have oversight of, liquor licenses, et cetera. We don't just hand those out. They go through background, they go through checks, and we make sure that they're doing things right. If they're not, they get shut down. And so when it comes to those that the concerns about disrupting the community or the fabric of the community, I look to who we're actually issuing them to. A lawful business that is legally entitled to. If we are issuing them to those that we know do not want to destroy that type of fabric, then I think it is consistent with our oversight. I know there's opposing. Elliot.
I'll just sound like a broken record, I guess. Had I been on the council a month earlier, I would have voted against allowing it at all. I don't want to see it expand. I have utmost respect for the Hanson family, for Funway, for the amazing facility that they've invested in and made better. The amount of time and the number of school programs that have tied to Funway and just their participation in the community is truly commendable. That said, again, I just don't want to see video gaming expand. I wish it weren't here. Can't undo that one. But I'm not going to support the expansion of video gaming. So
I'm with Elliot on that. I just am opposed to that. I spoke my piece earlier, but if there was a business in town, I think Funway would be the appropriate place for it. But again, I'm opposed to the video gambling and any expansion. I can't vote for.
Abby.
I'll just piggyback on that as well. Just I love Funway and I love the Hansons, and I think that it will be great for them, and I'm happy that they will ultimately probably end up with this. But at the same time, I don't want to see it expand. And it sounds like, and I don't think we've ever had just the actual conversation on who wants to see it expand in Batavia and who doesn't want to see it expand, and if there's going to be any other limitations that we put on it in the city of Batavia, because it sounds like it's going to expand. We're going to keep getting applications, because why wouldn't somebody apply? I mean, it's like printing money. It's just so easy. And then I don't think we're charging enough as a city to dissuade anyone from applying for it. And so I just think it will keep expanding. I think it will be really hard for us as a council to ever put the brakes on and to ever slow down and ever to not. I guess I just haven't heard. I lost my train of thought. I just see this snowballing. I don't think that we'll be able to say no to someone when we've said yes so many times, and to make an exception of somebody else down the road, I think will be really hard to do.
Like,
yeah, I'm for this, and I think we, on a case-by-case basis, as we've been doing, we're being responsible. And I also think as a city, we have to give those businesses the same tools in their toolbox to compete with other towns. And this is a way for them to compete with other towns. I think if we didn't do it in situations like this, I think it might drive business out of Batavia, and we definitely don't want to do that.
Nick?
I'd make a motion, we recommend ordinance 2011 to city council with a positive.
Second.
Motion by Cerrone, second by Rosado. Roll call.
Cerrone,
Aye.
McFadden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosado,
Aye.
Beck,
Nay.
Knopf,
Aye.
Shansett absent, Theron,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Meitzler,
No.
and Malay.
No.
Motion carried, 9-3.
9-3. Okay.
And then
That
we will
carries. That'll
discuss
be
that.
on the, you want that on consent or regular, or regular?
No, it has to be regular. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Next up will be ordinance 20-12, approving conditional use permit for recreational facility indoor large scale in the general commercial district, Edge Fitness at 301 North Randall Road. KIR Batavia 051 LLC is the applicant.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is for approval of a conditional use permit to locate Edge Fitness at 301 North Randall Road. This is an approximately 34,600 square foot lease space, formerly home to Bye Bye Baby. Plan Commission held a public hearing on January 15th for this conditional use, and it also granted approval of administrative design review for the sign and some detailing on the building elevations and added windows. In 2014, the City Council amended the zoning code to place a limit of non-retail uses in general commercial zone properties for multi-tenant buildings to have a maximum of 25% tenancy of non-retail sales tax producing businesses. With the proposed Edge Fitness, the building that would contain this business would have approximately 15% non-retail uses. So that is within the allowed maximum 25%. Edge Fitness and the property owner are here this evening. They're represented here this evening. If you have questions to ask at the public hearing, representation for the owner noted that they were in agreement with all of the staff recommendations for approval that we gave to the Plan Commission. A representative of Edge Fitness explained that there will be some limited retail opportunities at this location for refreshments and apparel. The commission arrived at positive findings as listed in the ordinance, and by a vote of 5-2, the Plan Commission recommended approval of ordinance 20-12, and it does include the conditions as listed in the ordinance. There would be there could be impacts to the city if one compares this lease space to having an active retail tenant. However, approving this conditional use permit will allow for quick turnover of the space, and it will not be vacant. Additionally, having a fitness establishment at this location may attract new customers to the retail businesses in the city of Batavia. With cow approval or recommendation or action on this ordinance this evening, this can go to the City Council on February 3rd, and staff recommends approval of ordinance 20-12 as presented.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm very supportive of this, just because I don't think the sign has dried from where it was up. I think it came down last Thursday, Friday, and already to have something getting ready to move in, when I know in that same location there's been a couple places that have been a little more challenged to get it filled. So I really appreciate the business moving with such speed on this one. So I'm in favor of it. Anyone have any questions or comments? Abby?
Question about the sidewalk payment made. Does that go into just our sidewalk fund then? We choose a sidewalk somewhere else?
It would go into sidewalk fund, and that money could be allocated for sidewalk improvements elsewhere in the city.
But not new sidewalks? Just
can be.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily. I did a little digital walk down Randall Road just to see where there were chunks of sidewalk and where they were still absent. So it looked like, and somebody else would probably know, it looks like Chick-fil-A has one in front of there. Did they opt for the sidewalk in front of their business instead of, or was that?
I believe that was put in by Kane County.
Oh, okay.
That sidewalk was put in.
Oh, for the bus.
Yeah,
It
that
does,
was
it
right
does
with the
adjacent
bus.
to the bus stop there. I mean, as much as I know we need to infill sidewalks here in town, I don't know if there's any thoughts on starting to connect stuff on Randall Road. It would be great to be able to walk or bike up and down Randall Road to those shops. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a consideration.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought when I saw that money in the ordinance, that was there, is where would we use that for? And that's something that I think, council will can make the decisions on where we want to start outside of our normal sidewalk plan. If there's money like that gets put in, do we want to try to use it as close to that site as we can? And I think, again, it would be to connect it where it makes sense, to keep spreading out from where we were already at, to try to get to those. Because yes, I do, the more and more that I spend just driving around looking at stuff like that, you see where there are people trying to get to those places and not being able to have a sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, all the bus stops seem to be connected to the closest corner.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going in the other direction,
you're forced back into a parking lot and then meander your way around to get to the other sidewalk that's at the next street.
right, yeah. So it's just kind of rough out there.
Just a clarification, when you're saying could be used, this is not just going into general fund, it's
Sidewalk.
purely for sidewalk purposes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and we've had other places in town where we've had money put into that fund in lieu of putting a sidewalk out there, because it made no sense to have it in that half block or 1 block or wherever it was, but to be able to use it to try to get closer to that, I think, is what we should strive for.
I just wanted to make sure that it's not going to be put into some larger.
We're not the state of Illinois
fund
just
and-
throwing it in the general
Yeah.
fund. We're
No,
gonna
it was,
designate where it goes.
I think about a year and a half or 2 years ago, there was someone building a single-family home, and they were required to make the payment in lieu of the sidewalk, but since no fund had been established at that time, city council decided to waive their payment altogether, and so thereafter, staff created that account where in the future, those funds could be deposited.
Does the applicant wish to discuss their business?
Good evening. My name is Bernard Citron. I'm with the law firm of Thompson Coburn. I represent the developer or the owner of the property, who is doing his best to keep his property maintained and released. And we respect the issues that you've had or concerns over putting new retail in. I can tell you categorically that we have heard from our other tenants that since Bye Bye Baby has gone out, they have felt the loss of traffic. So there's been some concerns there. I'm not saying that to try to set the stage or to do anything else, but this club will bring people into this center. Forgetting about everybody else, we're being very selfish. It is to our own self-interest that I'm saying this, but it will bring people into the center, and I think that's the most important thing. We worked closely with staff. There were some changes that they wanted done. There were some issues. Our first sign that we proposed was way too large, so we reduced it so that it met your standards. So we're not here asking for any variations like that. Believe it or not, this market is somewhat underserved. We looked at it. Edge looked at what this market is and how many people are here, and actually how many health clubs are here. I live in the city of Chicago, and it seems like there's one going up on every other corner. Just like there were other uses that were going up on every other corner, and they're now going away. But there really does seem to be, they're not going to invest into this property unless they see that there's a strong market. They're a great use. If you want to hear from Chris, I have Chris Bisson here from Edge who can answer any more if you have any questions about the use. But they're very excited to be here. They're looking to expand in Chicago. They're opening up in Naperville. There's a couple other locations that they are going to be looking at, and so they want to make this as part of their threshold in the city. So if there's any further questions, I can bring up the rest of our team.
Over the past years, the city council and the mayor have worked very hard, as you know, to keep retail on Randall Road. And so, it's slipping a bit. But if Edge is in here, I know you're saying that foot traffic is going to increase. Do they know how successful they're going to be? Do they have people already lined up coming? Do they have Any kind of a inventory of folks that,
They can't do that. They couldn't announce a location to try to get sort of a pre-sign up until you approve them.
right?
It would be entirely improper to go out there and market this location until they knew if the location could be there. What they go by is past experience. They go by how many people live, and it's not, by the way, it's not just Batavia. I mean, you could expect, I mean, people will cross municipal lines to go to a health club. So it is actually going to bring people in from outside of Batavia. So I don't think Chris could answer that question either in terms of do they already know. They do believe very strongly that this is a great location for them. It is on Randall Road, and while we absolutely respect the desire to keep retail there, there are difficulties. I mean, again, today, another store just said they're going into bankruptcy. So it's very hard to fill, and a 34,000 square foot space is one of the hardest spaces to fill. They used to call them junior anchors, and when you really look at it, they don't exist anymore. It's a real difficult thing. But we're here, we believe that this use will help us fill the rest of the spaces that are going dark, unfortunately, that have gone dark.
What are their hours of operation?
Chris, why don't you come up? You can do a little pre-marketing now.
My name is Chris Beeson. I'm the Director of Construction with Edge Fitness. Regarding membership, just hearing a question before, obviously, like Bernie said, we can't advertise and won't before we get accepted. It's not fair to the members nor to the town and city. But our clubs, when we do all the marketing and all the research, and there's people that are way smarter than me on it, our clubs average about 10,000 members. We base it on that. So going by the population, the 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile, all those different calculations and whatnot, we're actually booking this club to be a 10,000 member club by year 3. That's the average of our clubs. If we go to a market and it can't support that, it's hard for us to thrive, so we're not going to go into smaller markets. We can't make the numbers work, less than 10,000 usually. There are 3 other clubs in the area. The Export, there's one I think a half mile away, one 4 miles away, then there's a Planet Fitness. Their clubs are pretty good. I actually would say they're kind of average for their normal clubs. So I think we'll have great success because our clubs, I think not just because I work for them, are going to be far superior to what's already in the market. We'll bring more energy. We'll hopefully get more people from the market because there's 107,000 people in a 5 mile radius. And there's only about 8,000 signed up in those 3 clubs right now. So take out kids, take out folks that don't want to exercise. There's still 30, 40,000 people that we can attract to our gym and hopefully more.
And then with a development that's probably going to go right in your backyard.
Yeah.
They can just walk around the corner.
Exactly. Or ride a bike. You get the bikes. Right. So. Yeah, the hours of operation, our clubs, I'll say typically, unless the towns don't allow it, are 24 hours, starting Monday morning at 4 a.m., closing Friday at usually 9 p.m., and then we do 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday, and the same thing Sunday. So we close overnight Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. The 24 hours is somewhat unique. We are a fully staffed 24-hour club. I know some clubs allow 24-hour access, and you get in and there's no employees there, which scares me to death because it's a huge liability for not only our club but also our members, not having staff there. So we are always staffed when we're open. And then we've also found out a lot of our overnight members are ones that work different shifts. You work second shift or third shift, you still work out. Otherwise, most gyms are closed at 10 o'clock at night, and you can't work out in 4 in the morning, or you go to work early. So that's kind of a benefit of having the 24 hours.
So I know that you mentioned that you're going to be opening up in Naperville. What is the closest club to our location?
Connecticut, so I'm not totally sure on all the different towns here, but I know Naperville is our first club we're opening up. That'll be opening the end of February. Orland Hills is under construction right now, and that's about 6 months out. We have a location in Crystal Lake as well right now. The other ones we have on the docket, but we can't publicly announce yet because we're still doing lease negotiations and whatnot. But we're doing a major Midwest expansion right now. We started off in Connecticut. We have Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, pretty much well-equipped right now. So Detroit, St. Louis, and Chicago are the next three markets. And we hope to have probably about 15 or 20 clubs in the Chicago area in 3 to 4 years' time. So we're looking to invest a lot of time, money, and energy in the market. And I know, talking to our real estate director, that when they first came to Chicago and looked at it, Batavia was one of the first 6 clubs that we wanted to kind of say we got to get in order to make this thing work. Otherwise, it's not gonna take off when we want it to. So don't make the first cut.
Excellent.
I don't have a question, more of a comment, so if Joe has a comment, go ahead.
Now, you mentioned it's 4 miles to one of the other facilities, one of your potential competitors.
So, yeah.
It's 4 miles up Randall Road. And between my house and that location, there's lots and lots of places that entice me to come in and blow what I just did.
Distinct advantage.
I'm excited that there's someplace close, and it's, all I have to do is cross the
Beeline.
bridge, and I'm there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Exactly.
Thanks.
You'll get chicken.
Not if I go straight in and I cut through Target's parking lot and cut through the other parking, just go around the parking lot so I can avoid
You're
this.
still past chicken.
God, it's good.
So I guess I'll just say to that as well, you know, I don't have a question for the applicants here. Just in general, I would say I'm supporting this. I think it's great. I realize we're trying to protect our real retail space on Randall Road, but if we don't start giving people a reason to get out to these locations, I think it's naive to expect someone to take a giant leap of faith then as we hold out for the perfect retail to finally go in there. So I applaud finding something there that we believe will grow and thrive. I wish nothing but good luck to the business that is looking to occupy the space, and I'm going to support it. So let's get something in there.
And I kind of take that tack too. I think that I feel like one of these in different spaces along Randall Road is a chip generator that brings, I don't know how many 100 cars a day, whatever it is, into that shopping center for that reason. But while they're there, oh, you know, I can stop at Kohl's and get what I need here, or I can, you know, there are reasons why I think these things help the retail market that's out there, because if there's that many more cars in that parking lot every day, the next retailer that needs to fill a space out there will want to come in there because there are those trips there every day.
Joe can go buy some new clothes, now they fit.
Yeah.
Most of our clubs average like 1,500, 2,000 check-ins a day as well. So although we're not retail, although we're not giving the sales tax revenue, hopefully our members will bring more sales to the other surrounding companies and stores that'll kind of bring more revenue in. Sorry.
That's what I was going to ask. If you have a full membership of 10,000, and you just said 1,500 or 2,000 a day?
Yeah, on average, yeah. So some members just come
That's
in
a lot of
January, you know, or July for bathing suits, but it's still the same. And we try our best to sell the lifestyle and the education, not just equipment. So that's why we try to keep them coming and keep healthy.
Anyone else? I move we approve to City Council Ordinance 20-12, approving a conditional use permit for a recreational facility, indoor large scale, in the General Commercial District, Edge Fitness, 301 North Randall Road, KIR Batavia 051 LLC applicant.
Second.
Motion by Callahan, second by Knopp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Motion carries.
One question.
Regular agenda?
Regular or consent?
We could probably,
I'd put it regular so you can
Regular
talk about it, let
agenda. I
people
mean,
know where they're
it's
coming.
36,000 square feet out there.
and it's filling it fast, so.
Right.
Regular agenda.
Good story to tell.
Okay, next up is ordinance 20-08, amending Title 7, Chapter 1, Section 11 of the Municipal Code related to signs and awnings.
Who is this one? Scott, you have this one?
Yeah.
He's like, sure.
So a couple years ago in 18, we did a complete revamp of the Title VII one, and we completely went through it till the first of the two items is, I believe we touched on the license agreement back at that time too, and kind of talked about the fact that we'd bring this back. So the first item, ordinance number 20-08, it's a cleanup of that language that we amended back in 18. It kind of pointing the issues of the responsible parties of these awnings and signs. So not a lot of changes other than that, just identifying and kind of cleaning that up a little bit. The license agreement that kind of goes with it, that, obviously that kind of poses a little bit more challenge, and we touched on that back in 18. We do have an ongoing problem. It's not, it's everywhere every time it snows, but it does cause us problems with some of the cases that melt, freeze after hours, and then we have some foot traffic, and the next thing you know, we have some slips and things of that. So what the license agreement is not only trying to help encourage the business owner or responsible party to take care of their snow on their canopies, but also take care of their canopies or awnings, and basically keep them in good order, and also be responsible as far as the liability that these things can cause, not only the snow melt and refreeze, but also the fatigue of them and perhaps causing some kind of injury to somebody. So that's kind of in a nutshell, that's pretty much what the ordinance 20-08 and resolution 20-003 kind of starts to touch on. So I don't know if there's any questions, comments, otherwise.
Anyone? Recommend approval of ordinance 20-08, amending Title 7, Chapter 1, Section 11, municipal code related to sign and awnings.
Second.
Motion by Callahan, second by Knapp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That can go on consent. And then I move we approve to City Council Resolution 20-003-R, adopting a license agreement for awnings constructed over a public right-of-way.
Second.
Motion by Callahan, second by Rosato. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent.
Okay. Thank you. And now, next up is Resolution 20-007R, authorization to purchase 2020 John Deere 410L combination loader backhoe for $134,000 from Westside Tractor Sales. Scott?
All right. It's a joint purchase for the Public Works. It's electric and street and the water divisions all contribute funds to this expenditure. It's not street division anymore. I'm not it, but I still handle these expenditures. So with that said, on the proposal, it's through Sourcewell pricing, government pricing. We have utilized now several different times for various different pieces of equipment. We've budgeted $150,000 between the three divisions, and the unit, before the factor in the trade, as it it indicates, is $134,000. We can't really, right at this juncture, we're not gonna. We have to do the expenditure for the 134, and not accept the trade. We're gonna try to do the sale of it on our public surplus option, so that we can see if we can beat that price. I really doubt it, but because that's a pretty decent price, but it still keeps the vendor a little honest with that, with going that process. So at this juncture, we are looking to accept the 134 or recommend the purchase of the unit for 134, but more than likely it'll be the $38,000 less by accepting the trade at a later date. But we will or intend to put it on the public surplus pending approval closer to the delivery date, so that to see if that is the case, if we would just accept the trade or in fact take the a sale of it off the public surplus.
I know Joe has questions.
I have questions. And Scott and I have traded emails back and forth with questions and answers, and there's a couple things on either side of this that I come down to. One is I look at the hours on the unit. It's got less than 4,000 hours. My background in this market with heavy construction equipment, I know most of this stuff has got a design life of 10,000 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at that and think, it sounds to me early in its life from a usage, how long it's been used. You can't compare heavy equipment to cars and trucks that you see people driving on the road every day. It's different. You can't go by years and you don't have miles, you have hours. Because a lot of times they sit parked, but they're running because that's when they're operating. So there's no speedometer to look at to know how things are wearing out. You have to go by hours. So when I see the 4,000 hours, that was the first flag for me that, hey, wait a minute, that sounds a little soon to be replacing it.
Sure. Can I comment a little bit on?
Please do.
On that. 4,000 hours is a decent number for us to replace, only because it's an emergency vehicle for us. It's our fire engine. It is a vehicle that hits every main brake, every electric hit, all these things. And having it down, we have two, but we only have two. We don't have a grouping of other communities that can just can contribute their equipment and stuff to us, because they have their own operations to handle. So one unique pieces of equipment we do have, is our vac-on, our sewer cleaner. And we do that very same thing with the other communities, but we put them at risk when we ask them to, hey, can you cover for us? So this is this is our kind of one of our fire engines, so to speak, because it is sort of a emergency response weapon. The other thing is, this vehicle is driven to the jobs. We don't trailer these units either. So they do see a little bit different wear and tear one that might get dropped off at a construction site and left there and operate 9 hours a day. This unit's going to see a main brake. We've all seen them. There's probably 50 to 75 of these things a year, maybe more. But depending on the type of weather we're experiencing, and the various other digs that we're always, we put, we put a few thousand lengths of footage of pipe and storm sewer in the ground, and with our own crews last year. So those are things that maybe not everybody sees, but they're the things that are continuing to go on. And so we always say, there's not a day that really goes by that the backhoe is not going out and going somewhere to dig a hole somewhere. So that's I guess my response to the little bit of low hours on a unit. It has to be a dependable, ready to rock and roll unit to dig a hole.
Well, and that leads to the second point. You had mentioned that we've recently done about $16,000 in repairs, and that's all the hydraulic hoses. And you look at a piece of equipment like that, again, my background is in rubber products that goes into those equipment, which we don't make hoses because we stay out of that business. But rubber hoses sitting out exposed for 10 years would be the first thing that you'd expect to go out.
Right.
And if we just put $16,000 worth of hose on there.
2 years ago, yeah.
It was 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. So my thought there was, you've just replaced the one thing that's going to wear out first, and it took quite a while before that went out. Right. I would expect you may not get another same blockage of time out of that, but there certainly is an extension of that.
Right.
So that was where those questions about hours came in. One of the other things that you did relay to me when we talked about other manufacturers, why just Deere? And one of the compelling reasons that you gave me was the attachments that go onto that piece of equipment kind of have, because of what you've got that goes onto that and the amount of years that we've had that equipment, have kind of tied you in brand specific because of the attachment that goes in. So there I can see, one, I say, why are we replacing it? Why are we sticking with deer? Well, now I completely understand why you'd want to stay with deer, but that brings up another question, and it has to do with spending and the price tag on it. And that was the third question I asked you, is why the 410 and not a 310? The 310 is a little bit smaller machine. It's got about 5,000 pounds less lifting force. It runs the same pressures. It's got a slightly smaller engine, slightly smaller frame. Would that, and a significantly reduced price tag, would that machine be capable of handling the types of operations that you put it through here in Batavia?
The quick answer is no. The 310J, L, I can't remember whichever one. There's less reach. The base model 310 does not have an extend hoe. You'd have to go to an HP model or an SL model to be able to get to that reach that we need and kind of get used to, which we had with our older cat unit. Now we have the deer and the older deer that we're replacing. There's about a 1.5 to 2 foot difference in reach. There's a couple thousand pounds difference in breakout strength and lifting capacity. So the reason being, and I've looked at this. I think it's the HP. Let me get the right terminology, but it's a SLHL is the model of that John Deere. It is. We can actually purchase that unit off the source well, and it's about $13,000 less than the unit that we've recommended. That is still a tier below the unit that we've recommended. The 310 that you asked me about is like 2 or 3 tiers below that. So what I don't want to do is get our staff in a situation where we're in a 310 for most of our stuff, the day-to-day stuff, but when they think they're going to need the extra breakout force, now the 410 that we have is going to get all the use.
Right.
And then the 310 is going to be slightly less money over the span of 10 or 12 years is now not going to see any use. I don't want to say any, but it's going to be less use, and so that swing's going to stay, and it's going to wear that machine out to where its physical powers aren't going to be as good as having 2 fairly equal machines. The three, and don't get me wrong, the 10 that I looked at can do 90% of everything that we needed to do.
But it's the 10%.
It's the 10% that when I got to have guys drive from wherever they're at on a main break to go change out a machine because it can't do that 10%. Now I'm starting to question why we didn't do the $13,000 more machine for $1,000 a year. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay.
Vendor specific was another question you had raised. Now, we had a cat in our house. We've had Case before, well before I started with the Public Works. The guys that do this every day are deer savvy guys, and they're very. I mean, the guys that dig literally are the ones in the machine every day. They're the ones that are in my ear. And so I've got a good relationship with Tate over at Westside, and he takes really good care with us on our units, and I'm certainly game to explore it. I just don't know. It's going to take me another couple months to go through, because I'm not going to just grab numbers. I'm going to grab machines, and I'm going to put it to use before I can stand up here and recommend it. You know what I mean? I just can't recommend a machine off of thinking it's comparable and putting my guys out in it, and I'd have to put it on the road for demo purposes and not just, exercise it in the shop.
Thank you.
But I'm willing to take that time to do that.
I love everything you said. Like I said, I had questions. I wanted to hear the explanations so that I can make an informed decision, and you've given me everything I need to do that. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say, I think Joe brought up some really good comments on that. I think one of the things in my mind from the mechanical background I have is they just put $16,000 worth of hoses on it. The next thing that starts to go out after the hoses have all been replaced are the cylinders and the pumps, the other big dollar items that are on the unit. And if you're at that point where even with $16 or $16,000 put into it 2 years ago, that it's still worth money to trade in or a good value as a trade-in, that's the time to get rid of it before you have to start throwing more money in it that you're not going to get back out of it when you go to trade it in or sell it outright. And I think that's the other thing is somebody in the outside world is going to look at it and say, ooh, it's only got 4,000 hours on it. I don't even have to touch the engine on that for another 5 years. So that's another big ticket. And they're really not thinking, well, it's got all new hoses on it. Maybe I won't have to do much else to it. Or if it needs a pump or it needs cylinders, I'll deal with that. So I think that's why the value of it is still decent on the market. And I think this is the right time to get out of it and move on to another new one before you get to that tipping point.
Another thing on the Deere is we have another backhoe that's a Deere. We have 2 end loaders that are Deeres. The consistency of their operation and maintenance is another key thing for us too. So having one mechanic and he knows all that equipment and our trucks and all our stuff. Having another equipment that one would argue that a mechanic should know what from machine to machine, and he would learn it just as easy as anything. But it's another set of filters and another set of maintenance items that go on the shelf. For I'm already messing with them by these Peterbilts and other things. So these his shop is expanding without the walls moving. So.
I was just going to say, just like you had said about wanting to do the research to have the informed decision. I appreciate you guys bringing this up and discussing it because it's one of those, it informs us of the decisions so that we have a better understanding of why we're purchasing and what the difference of this is versus this is. Because you hear a lot of uninformed opinions out there that just say, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you just go to Menards and get something off the line there? And it's like, well, you can't do that. I mean, there's a level there, but sometimes we don't know the right questions to ask. So I appreciate you with bringing your background into it. So I'm just going to appoint you that whenever I've got a question, it's just going to come. So we're actually saving you time by appointing Joe.
Well, and it's funny because I come and one of the first things I ask you is why deer? And anybody that knows me knows that I wear green all over the place. I'm a deer guy, but I ask why deer.
Sure.
So,
and to your point, these things aren't sitting on a lot the way we need it, just ready to be sold. We were so lucky when we picked up that bucket truck last year. I mean, literally sitting on a lot in North Carolina. That just doesn't happen. But so with this piece of equipment, there's just a number of hydraulic lines that are on this unit that feed hand tools, just so our guys that are down in the hole aren't operating gas powered tools. There's all kinds of stuff, plus the hammer attachments and grapple and stuff that goes on these things to do the various different types of work we have to do across the 3 and 4 divisions out there. So.
And I think it's good with 2 pieces of equipment if they are matching, that if you needed the hammer to break up something on it and it gets damaged, you've got another one on the other piece of equipment, and then the bucket can go back onto the other one, so you can do 2 different jobs, even though maybe one of the attachments might be down. So I think that's a good thing. If we had different versions of each one, that would be really difficult. I'm sure our plows fit on certain trucks or fit certain frames so that they can use one if something else is down on it, not 7 different plows for 7 different trucks.
I have one big plow that's different, but all 13 other ones are the same.
Right, and I think that's something that is good for us to know, and Marty makes a good point that that's something good for us to know, that somebody's going to ask questions like that and know some of those answers.
So I guess I'll just kind of hopefully close it here and just say, I'm clearly not a mechanic. My mechanic knows I'm not a mechanic. So I do appreciate the conversation and the questions that Joe in particular brought up here. That aside, though, I will just call out for what it is as well. Here was a budgeted item at 150,000 across 3 different departments, but nonetheless, that's coming 16 grand under, and that's before the trade-in amount. So it's potentially coming in at 2/3 of the budgeted cost, which is pretty nice.
And I think
so. Kudos to you and the department for that.
Remind me, Scott, we used to be at like 15 years, I think, is what we were trying to do on big equipment, on either end loaders or backhoes. This is a little bit early from what was in the history.
This is, we were trying to keep a 10-year replacement.
Okay.
On these.
So we're beyond what the norm.
So we're sitting at about 12 years, so, with this unit. And the interesting thing about, and Joe probably knows just as much about this, the price increases on this equipment just keeps going up and up and up. But what's been beneficial for us in these government purchasing abilities is that those decreases and those rebates are so great for us. And so this unit is really $1,000 or so more than the unit we bought 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, the list price goes up like this, but
Right.
the government cost stays like this. So
supplier
But
component
it goes
parts.
to tell you, it goes to tell you who the bigger purchasing power is.
Right.
Really, in a lot of these types of, whether it's a state purchase or, you go Ford trucks, it's this type of equipment. I mean, you go across the board, governments are the biggest purchaser.
Well, and that may be some of the reason why the trade-in value and or the open market sales price on the used equipment is staying up.
Yeah.
Nick?
I was just going to reiterate, you ever scroll on TV and get caught on the Spanish station? I was on the Spanish station for most of that, but great questions, but great translation too. So
You need to come to a car show sometime with me, and I'll just and I'll glaze your eyes over walking through, looking under hoods.
We'll go to Vegas, we'll go to ConAg next
The
year.
honesty is awesome.
Take you out to ConAg, we'll have a good time.
Okay, are we done discussing this? Yes. I will make the motion that, let's see, this is
15.
007. We recommend a council authorization to purchase a 2020 John Deere 410L combination loader backhoe for $134,000 from Westside Tractor Sales.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Meitzler. He beat you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We can put this on consent. We've talked about it enough.
No, Nick wants to watch more Mari Mar.
I know.
Nick's eyes.
Alan, you say consent?
Yeah, we'll put it on consent. Next up will be Resolution 20-009, authorization to purchase a 2020 John Deere 1575 tractor with front mount broom and snow blower attachment for $41,432.90 from Buck Brothers Incorporated. Scott?
Right, this one is a unit we bought back in 2003. 1435 is the actual name on it. It was purchased by state purchase program at that particular time. They had a nice deal. It was just under $25,000 back then. So this unit that we're recommending that unit's no longer available. It's been replaced by the 1475 or 1500 series, and the 1575 is the comparable cab type system that we currently have. We're recommending to replace the blower and the broom. Those are the two heaviest used items. We do have a mower attachment for the 1435 that we intend to keep. it's not used nearly as much as the blower and the broom. The broom gets a lot of use for those that seen Kevin and George down here. They do in this property and then help us out with Houston Street and stuff. So we're actually, you know, and some of the questions that Joe had given me, in a couple years, we're looking at replacing our large snow blower and broom. That's the trackless unit. It's funny money is what it is. It's what those things have gone to. Yeah, I don't know how they even stay in business, but to replace that thing's about $160,000 for one unit. So it is not something we really intend to replace with apples to apples at that time. But this unit here, if this one works out well enough for us, we may be looking at a second one of these in a few years to replace that. So that it only makes sense because dollars and cents for that other one just doesn't add up. So this is it's a nice unit for us. It's a heated cab for the guys, and the interchange, the attachments are pretty easy.
Anybody have any questions? I will say, I think the one that we have now gets used constantly. I think does a great job. And, I see the thing out all the time downtown here. I think it's something that, I don't know how many hours it has on it, but it gets used a lot.
It's our, I didn't take the hours. It's got to be way up there. It's pushing, a lot of years on that. But lost my train of thought, but they definitely use it a lot down here. So, and I mean, they're very finicky as we need it to be for being able to have, safe walking, in and out of this facility. So
I also think it's interesting. This was one of the first purchases we did as equipment when I got on the city council was the one we're replacing. I remember going through all the specs and everything on it. I think it was kind of cool because the way it was used, how it was used. And back almost now 20 years ago, we went and we spent a lot of time researching that 1435 unit. It's at Geneva School District. We went up there and met with them. They had like 5 of them, so they just absolutely loved them. And so that's when we did this purchase. It just we weren't able to use it as much in downtown as we had hoped because it just didn't have the power to move the slushy, wet, heavy snow. So that's when we a couple, 2-3 years after that, we moved towards doing the trackless unit, which could move a house, I think. But but yeah, that's I think this unit here might help get us to that point with having a nice option for replacement of that in a few years, if all works well. And this is each unit backs up each other. So if this one breaks down, the trackless backs up this one. If the trackless breaks down, the green machine is, the 1435 is used, I call it the green machine, sorry. 1435 is used to help supplement what we do with the trackless. So it's 2 older pieces of equipment that kind of help each other out. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Now I'll make the motion that we recommend the council authorization of resolution 20009R, purchase of a John Deere 1575 tractor with front mount broom and snow blower attachments for $41,432.90 from Buck Brothers.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Knopp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That can go on consent as well. Okay, next up will be item number 17, resolution 20-010R, authorization to purchase a 2020 Ford T150 cargo van for $23,042 from Landmark Ford. Scott?
Over the years, we've eased into this one. So this has been a soft purchase. So we mean by that is we've used recycled vehicles that we've taken out of the daily operation from all the crews and giving them to Kevin and George to utilize for their transportation needs going to and from Menards or to and from Public Works to City Hall. And we've kind of reached the point where it's just not functionally working out that great to have two pickup trucks. One, and one is those vehicles can't fit in Public Works because we're just not sized to be able to handle it. So they're outside, and their equipment that goes in and out of it has to be brought in and out all the time. So what this would do for us is be able to have set up the van as being our complete maintenance setup for it to be able to have all the tools and parts on board pretty much all the time, and not having to take stuff in and out every time they want to go from one building to the next. So they do have materials and some stuff that's staged at each place, but as far as tools go, I mean, there's really a set of tools and a certain amount of things that you need to kind of have with you at all times. So that's what this purchase is, and it'll be one of those low mile type vehicles that'll last for 20 years. One of them kind of purchases. So it's I mean, there's some of those around that we just live with. So we feel it's just a standard van. It's a nothing state purchase, kind of no options, as you can see from the attachment. It's pretty much a bare bones box to carry stuff. So.
And then all the other vehicles, as they pass out of other departments, will be auctioned off and gotten rid of instead of being passed through this.
This vehicle will be the 2001 Chevy pickup will be sold.
Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is the ones from the other departments won't be handed down to them
Right.
and then maintained for a while till they can't be maintained and then surplus. This will just stay there.
Yep, this one will be there. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, I'll make the motion that we recommend to council resolution 20-10R, authorization to purchase a Ford T-150 cargo van for $23,042 from Landmark Ford.
Second?
Motion by Wolf, second by Knopp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Okay, next up is the big one. Resolution 20-18-R, authorization to purchase a 2020 Peterbilt chassis for $97,675 from JX Peterbilt.
All right, for my last item for tonight, the December of 2018, I brought the first Peterbilts to council for purchase. Oddly enough, today we got our first Peterbilt delivered. So you can see how long this cycle takes. The purchase of the chassis happened in December, I believe. The PO was issued in December of 18 rather, and we got word that they were completed, so they went from Peterbilt to Monroe back in May of 2019. So it's been since May of 2019 to today to get one of the two trucks, and the other one is due in a month. So it's a long, painful process when they're building these things, and they had in Monroe they had a little revamp of their assembly too, so that kind of caused some delays. So, but back on this chassis purchase, a recommendation to purchase is we're looking to continue that Peterbilt chassis purchase versus the international. I do state there is an international option, and it is through a state bid, but I'm still recommending the purchase of the Peterbilt. Why you say $14,000 difference? We've had a number of issues with about 5 or 6 of our internationals. One in more recent time, which helped push me to just get away from international for as long as it takes. That repair cost us $14,000 this last week, all on emissions issues. And their international isn't one to say that they put $14,000 into this vehicle and then it's going to be perfect for the next 20 years. It's not the case. In the next 5 to 6 years, I may be looking at a $7,000 repair doing the exact same thing that I just did if I catch it in time. And so by them not standing by their product to come up with solutions that aren't going to cost us and all of us taxpayers more money to fix them, I don't see any reason to reinvest into that equipment. So we could be in the same boat with Peterbilt 6-8 years from now. I doubt it. It's a very established process that they have gone to with their emissions, and their trucks have been around for a lot longer, long time. So with that said, that my recommendation with this truck chassis is to go with Peterbilt, which would be the same model, same everything as the units we ordered back in 2018. And these price for the chassis is like $1,000 more than it was in 2018. So the price increase is really minute compared to what it could be for a couple of years. And then I'm currently in the process right now of finishing just some tidying up on the specs for the tandem axle, plow, spreader, dump body, all the hydraulics. So I'll be back in probably another month and with bid results or quote results for Sourcewell on that build out, so I can get that in the process. This unit will likely be it's just kind of scary to even look at these numbers, but this unit the chassis will be delivered this year, but the delivery for this truck will be June of 2021.
And the truck that it's replacing will last that long? We hope.
If it were one of the 5-year-old to 7-year-old internationals, I would say no, but
it's an older one.
But this one, it should.
So this one is pre-def, doesn't have the diesel exhaust fluid, and
it's a truck that's used on the main brakes. It doesn't see it. I mean, we do put plow on it, and
no, but what I'm saying is this one doesn't have the newer emission setup on it.
The one that we're replacing is long before the emissions.
Right, so that doesn't have the issues that the newer trucks have with the DEF converters and the injection system and everything.
And we get a pretty doggone good price on these old chassis too when we sell them on public surplus. The ones that are before the emissions modifications.
For everybody that doesn't know, diesels that run as the newer emission setups that are on them have concentrated urea fluid that's in them. That's exactly what you think it is. That is a separate spray or injected into the exhaust stream on them with a converter. And the typical system on a truck that I would see on a light duty thing can be $2,500 or $3,500 to fix. And that's on an everyday truck. So there's a lot of them running around out there that are what's called cat deleted, that really shouldn't be that way. But when you sign a little paper that says it's off-road only, that happens all the time. We as a municipality can't do that. So that's why we have to fix them when they break.
Yep.
And one of the things is a lot of the newer systems, BMW and Volkswagen stuff on theirs with the DEF fluid in them, they will shut the vehicle down if you run it out of fluid or you don't have any in it, so that it can't emit any harmful emissions. So that's one of the problems with these systems is they've engineered this to try to clean them up, but they are a disaster after long term.
We have one of our bucket truck internationals that actually, when it wants to go into regen mode, you have to basically go put it on 88, drive it 60 mile an hour, drive it out to the next, you'd have to drive it out past 47 to get it to clean up and come back. I mean,
you don't want to be anywhere near it when they regen.
The whole emissions thing is it's a painful process. But the DEF option has helped ease some of that problem, but it's another whole system and another whole liquid to have on board. We go through about 55 gallons of DEF fluid every month between all the different vehicles. So.
Is, when we look at this at the $97,000 price on it, is this the item in the budget that's truck number 3726 that's being replaced?
That's for 210.
So I'm assuming the other $100,000 is the modifications once the chassis comes in?
That'll be, like the truck I just took receipt of today was $99,000 was all the equipment. It's crazy number. So one of the things that when I first started here in Public Works streets, we were on a 10-year replacement, and it was quickly changed. You know, and I don't think I've ever had a real super easy budget process. You know, from is working with the city administrators then to now, that's not always an easy process. But then working with you guys, but we've not only expanded increased the quality of what we do to these trucks. It's just unfortunate that some of the chassis aren't up to that same standard. But I feel really comfortable with the stuff we're doing to these trucks going 20, 25 in the stuff that we're doing today, if the chassis will make.
When I started on the council, they were almost all, I think they were all steel boxes, and now they're all stainless, right?
Yeah.
Because there was stuff that would rot out before the chassis was ever close to being worn out. And now it's the opposite way. The equipment, you realistically probably could swap over, but I don't think you want to do that.
I mean, it's funny you say that. I had the same conversation today, that I've got so much money invested in the equipment that is almost timeless. That's with these internationals that I'm not going to get squat for on a surplus in 10 years. That's going to be probably the best case scenario is chassis. Look at swapping that stuff over, because the chassis is going to be not worth anything, because nobody's going to want to buy it.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll make the motion that we recommend to council resolution 20-18-R, authorization to purchase a 2020 Peterbilt chassis for $97,675 from JX Peterbilt.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Knopp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Next up will be ordinance 20-13, approve new drug and alcohol policy.
All right.
Hello.
Good evening. As you are all aware, at the beginning of the year, the state of Illinois passed the adult use of cannabis. And so, as you can imagine, in the workplace, it created some interesting dynamic or concerns as to how you handle drug and alcohol policies going forward. Specifically in public sector with the type of positions that some of our employees are. So we have been reviewing this, and this is the policy bringing forth. They're really overall, I guess you would say, in a high level, there's no change to the policy as it was pre-cannabis use, and the fact that before there was a no tolerance for drug or alcohol while on job or prior to coming to work. So this just outlines that more specifically. It talks through one of the things in the trailer bill that was the second part of the bill that didn't go into effect. I think it was around November or December. It allows municipalities to identify those that are in safety sensitive positions to specifically say that they cannot prohibit the use of drug and alcohol not only on duty but also off duty. And the two positions here at the city of Batavia that are listed are our police officers and our firefighters. So they are listed specifically in the policy that it is prohibited on as well as off duty. And then additionally, our public works employees, just so you're aware of, they're subject to DOT. Everyone is a CDL driver. So as you know, on a federal level, cannabis is still a a level 1 illegal drug. So, so they are all still as well subject to those guidelines. So there's no use in regards to CDL drivers. And then additionally, the other piece of it, we more specifically outline the reasonable suspicion piece of it. In fact, last week, we just held training for all of our supervisors in regards to reasonable suspicion and what that looks like, and to make sure, while that's always been something that's been in our policy, but reviewed that as well with all of our supervisors in that piece of it. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Anybody have any questions? I will make the motion that we recommend ordinance 20-13, approval of the new drug and alcohol policy. Council.
Second.
Who was that? Nick? Okay. Motion by Wolf, second by Cerrone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That can go on consent. Next up will be resolution 20-13-R, authorizing purchase of water meters. Alderman O'Brien.
So throughout the years, last few years, we've been looking to standardize our water meters and our reading devices, and we've been replacing them and buying them in bulk to do just that. I don't know how long we've been doing this now. We're buying them about 500 at a clip.
About 1,000.
About 1,000 at a clip. And so we're looking to use the Badger meter and the Liberty and the Itron reading device, the electronic reading device. When was the last time we did this, Jeremy? Was it last year or 2 years ago?
We've been doing it every year since.
Every year, so I mean, it's been for a while now.
Yeah, we're about 65% complete with the meter change-out program now. Just so everybody knows, we've been doing this since 2013. We're on about a 7-year of hopefully 11, 12-year program. We're averaging about $750 a year. Some years a little better, some years a little worse, but we're ramping back up now. And I did go out and solicit some quotes for the Badger meters. It's important to note that Badger, a Midwest meter, is the distributor for Badger in this area, so I can't get prices from anybody else for that particular meter. But their price came in very favorable. The Itron ERT, on the other hand, there are 4 distributors for this area, and Midwest meter also was the lowest price for those per ERT. ERT is the radio system for the meter itself. So the price per meter came in at $147.50. That's the meter and the radio itself. So I'm here asking if I can purchase meters for 2020 in an amount not to exceed $200,000. $100,000 of that comes out of the water fund and $100,000 out of the sewer fund.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
One of the comments that I'd like to make is, while it might seem a very slow process to replace these meters over the period of 11 years, that means that as they get to end of life, we're not having to replace all of those meters at once. So being able to do this at that kind of pace will be an advantage to us as they reach end of life.
Right.
And I think I know this is something going back into time when we started this, that one of the reasons for doing that is to be able to do it all in-house and not have to contract out to somebody. You know, not have to go out and hire a plumbing firm to come in and do 15,000 meters or 10,000 meters at once.
So, and we're looking to standardize it as we've been doing, just because it's easier. It's just, we don't have to stockpile a whole lot of things in inventory, different kinds.
One kind of meter and one kind of ERT, which is Itron, and that's exactly what the electric department uses as well.
So just a clarification question for you, I guess. At the price, the unit cost price for each one of those, I mean, that if I just do the simple math, you know, we're talking like a little over 1,300 meters. Is that on an annual basis how much we're able to actually get replaced out there, or?
We do 1,000, so the sheet that I have is for 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch meters. That's our most common. You start getting up into the 1 inch meters, 1.5, 2 inch.
Jeremy, speak into the microphone, please.
Commercial meters, that type of thing. Those tend to get a little more pricey as you get up into those higher commercial meters. So this this money also covers that as well.
Got it.
Anybody else? Anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Millet, second by Saron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll just consent that.
Okay, next up is Resolution 20-14-R, authorizing execution of Task Order 18 with Engineering Enterprises for professional services relating to the preliminary engineering of the Holy Cross Force Main for an hourly amount not to exceed $30,407. Alderman O'Brien?
So I guess we've been having failures with this force main. It's unfortunate. I guess the reason we're listing here is that, it's ductile iron pipe. Ductile iron pipe is to last 100 years, and this is lasting 20 years because we didn't encase it in the polyethylene 20 years ago. So, it's something we're really going to need to do. So if you want to take it from there, Jeremy, you can explain to us.
Sure. As Alderman O'Brien noted, the Holy Cross Force Main, which is right where you'd think it'd be, it's right behind Holy Cross. It runs down on the east side of Holy Cross Church through the wetland area, east on Main Street, and goes under Randall Road, and goes all the way back down Main Street to ties into the First Street lift station at Van Nortwick. The section between Randall and the Holy Cross Force Main has had catastrophic failures over the past 3 years. There's been 6 failures, and 3 of those were catastrophic failures that required 8 to 10 feet of pipe to be cut out. If any of you guys have ever seen a force main repair or break, it's probably the most horrible thing you've ever
Pretty ugly.
It's pretty ugly. So my concern is for crew safety and health at this time. It was not properly installed at the time. It was not encased, as Alderman O'Brien stated, so it has rotted. It's very bad. So I'm proposing having EEI give me a hand with some easement coordination and negotiation. There's some easements we're going to need from Holy Cross, the car wash, gas station, maybe some from KDOT as well. We're going to look into all those, along with topography, kind of doing some routing, soil borings, that type of thing. Kind of get things moving just slow, and then we'll get into design engineering later. So that's where we're at. My plan is to go with C900 plastic in that area, which is resistant to corrosive soils and those issues that we're having.
Anybody have any comments or questions?
I have a question. Do we have any other of this uncoated stuff anywhere? Do we have any records of other areas that are potentially at risk?
That whole force main is not bagged all the way to
all the way from Holy Cross all the way back in.
Correct, but those soil conditions are not as hot. We call them hot out in the field. That area on the west side of Randall to the lift station itself, that soil is very hot, corrosive for some reason or another. It's just really bad. We have had breaks on the east side of Randall to Van Nortwick, not cracks like we're used to seeing with water main breaks. It fluctuates, it cracks, that kind of stuff happens. But these are full-blown failures. A 12-inch main and an 8-foot chunk flies off the top. That's pretty major.
Now, is this in the same layout as the crosstown water main?
No.
It doesn't run?
It does, yes. It's with that 20-inch main as well.
Okay, so it runs right down Main Street like that, okay.
So how much footage are we talking about?
It's about 600. I mean, we haven't started the whole layout yet. 600 linear feet. So,
of 12-inch.
Of 12-inch, yeah.
That's a lot of effort. Anybody, I want to make one point. Anybody have anything else? We do have a master service agreement with Engineering Enterprises, and it'll be task order 18, so that's readily available to us. Anybody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Joe Knopp,
Second.
second by Tony Millay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Consent?
Yeah,
Consent, yeah.
Well, good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up will be project status.
I know that we have an executive session tonight, so I'll just be brief with a few things. I would like to extend a thank you to the Batavia United Methodist Church, who have extended an 18-month rent-free lease for the Batavia Access Toy Drive. As you know, the Toy Drive has no permanent home and relies on the generosity of members of our community to provide space for them. And it is a year-long project. After the toys are distributed every year, there are a small inventory of toys that still need to be stored for the remainder of the year, as well as a place to collect all of the toys throughout the entire following year, collected from local companies and others who make donations. And Batavia United Methodist Church has very generously offered to loan us space for the toy drive that will not only allow them to store the toys, but might also offer a nice place for distribution next year. So I want to thank them very much for their generosity. In Public Works, the engineering staff has reviewed consultant qualifications for the Mahoney Creek watershed study, and a recommendation will be forthcoming to City Council in February. Underground wires are being pulled in for the 34 kV feeder line between the Paramount substation and the new Northeast substation, and planning efforts are underway for the 2020 roadway resurfacing project. The preliminary overall list of streets has been created. Staff will be working in the next months to finalize the list based on the 2020 budget and other concerns, and then bidding will be in midsummer. And if you're ever interested to see, what streets are being contemplated, what sidewalks are being replaced and such, that information is available on City Maps. City Maps can be found at the bottom of the city's homepage, and all of those projects will be posted by the end of next month. For police, at a special meeting of the Board and Fire and Police Commissioners, the board hired Alex Wakely to fill the vacancy in the department created by Vince de Blasio's retirement. We are very happy that Alex Wakely comes to us with several years of experience from the Dixon Police Department. He is tentatively scheduled to begin his training with us on February 10th. And we have just recently hired 2 part-time employees to supplement our records office staff on weekends. They were replacements due to staffing losses from 2019. And also, PD has recently received 1 of the 3 police SUVs that were authorized in the 2019 budget. The remaining 2 should arrive next week, but these are vehicles that we ordered in February of 2019, and it was just a manufacturer's delay, but it has really caused a significant disruption to our annual vehicle rotation program. So we're happy that we're going to get all of those delivered here in the next week. Finally, just wanted to let you know that about the schedule for annual reports this year. On February 18th, we will be giving an annual report that's covering the accomplishments in 2019, as well as a preview of what departments are going to be working on in 2020. On February 18th will be the Communications Department, as well as the annual update for our Strategic Action Plan. On February 25th will be Finance and Information Systems. On March 3rd will be a presentation from Public Works. On March 10th will be Community Development, Economic Development, to include a preview of the changes coming in the organization of that department. And on March 17th will be Human Resources, the Fire Department, and the Police Department. And finally, I think everyone has seen the news that the Park District has announced the location for the proposed rec center that is the subject of the referendum on the March ballot. That is at the Batavia Business Park, which is on South River Street on a vacant parcel that was formerly, or until it closes, is owned by a Rubicon Corporation. So That was announced this week, and we will look forward to working with them to determine whether any zoning or other changes need to be made. But they've contacted us just to ask us some questions about the appropriateness of that use for that parcel. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me. Alderman Knott.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's my night for questions. I'll probably get with you tomorrow if you're available. I got a call today from Tyler Edwards from Menards.
Okay.
Had some questions and wanted to chat about some stuff.
Sure.
So he reached out to me, and I'll touch base with you tomorrow and
Sounds good.
talk about that.
Very good.
Thanks.
I've had a number of people come to me separate from obviously a lot of the online banter around the Park District referendum, and they have asked about the same McKee and Van Nortwick. And to my understanding, that is private property. It is privately owned. There is a lease on that one for years to come, and so it's not in the city's purview at this time. And so I guess I just wanted to kind of get that out there on the record. Where I want to also clarify is, any misconceptions there. It's my understanding that we have not taken any sort of a stance on, apart from it being zoned residential, to discuss where the future of that property may go. And just again, to get that out in the open, I don't believe this council has ever made any sort of decision, of straw poll even, around where the future of that property ought to be. It's simply zoned residential, and that's all there is to it at this time.
I think we did make a public statement or a desire after there was meetings with a group from the neighborhoods surrounding that we did want to see a mixed-use development, and, I believe it's zoned mixed use. And, some of the comments I'll say that I've seen on Facebook and other social media of next door is that people think that the city told them no, they couldn't build it there. That is nowhere near the truth. The truth is that we didn't go out and ask the Park District, hey, would you like to build this there? This is a piece of property that's for sale in town or is going to be for sale. And if we were, as the city, to see something that we wanted on there, we went and asked the neighbors what they would like over there, and the mixed use development was what fit most of what was feedback, and that's what was sent out or broadcast from the city that we would like to see happen there. The city's desire would be to see some type of mixed use there. Until somebody buys that property and wants to build on it, pretty much anything is open to that property. Right. So if the Park District bought the property and came to the city and said, we want to put a rec center there, that would then be the start of a discussion.
Yep.
That would happen. Or, hey, we have an option to buy this property. We would like to put, 300 townhomes on it. That's another discussion to have on it. So I think that's the reality of what the public should know, that that's what's out there. Not that the city went to the Park District and said, no, you can't do it. And the Park District didn't come to the city and said, hey, can we build on that property?
Right.
The city approved a plan with Mooseheart a number of years ago when we annexed the whole thing that calls for, depends on the total number of units that are in there, but they've got about between 20 and 25 acres right to the west of the Batavia Fire Station on the west side, right across the street from the high school football field, that I guess someday will be some type of park facility. It's been all voted on by this body, and we annexed it, and the land uses were all identified.
Did the Park District pick which part they wanted? Because I thought it was one of two places.
No, I think it's that one.
It is the
Yeah,
western
it's
one?
and that was going to be the entryway into the facility, and it was going to be this big, lovely park with facilities there right to the west of the fire station. Okay. That hasn't changed any, as far as I can know. It's still there. Okay. The Siemens property is an interesting little thing because the Siemens doesn't own that whole thing. They only own a small portion of it. And the rest of it is owned by a Batavia family who has a lease with Siemens for a number of years yet to come. And Siemens pays a monthly fee to rent nothing there. But that's the way the whole deal came together. And so I guess there's no urgency anybody wants to buy or sell it because there's this lease there that's generating a lot of money.
There's a lot of envy.
Well, and I think the other thing that people have to be aware of too is, and Scott could correct me if I'm wrong, but the western side of that property that's all contiguous to the Siemens, what everybody calls the Siemens property or the Furnace Electric property for those of us that have been here for a while, that will probably have to be where water retention is on that property, because that is the low spot, and that is the part that family owns that's a lease. So that's kind of the key to developing that entire property. So again, that's one of the things that has slowed anything happening on that property, because why would I want to sell it if I'm getting a check every month? Okay, anybody else have any others?
No, I was just going to ask would any zoning changes for that parcel impact any of the existing businesses in there?
In the Batavia Business Park?
Right.
I don't think that it should affect the zoning for any of the other parcels in there.
For the Fox Valley Business Park, you mean?
Yeah, Fox Valley, I'm sorry.
It shouldn't have any effect if we have to do a zoning change. I mean, it would be public facilities or planned development or something like that.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have any effect on other properties in there.
I was only thinking of specifically maybe one business that
No.
would have any required. Okay.
I guess the biggest question I have when that all hit, that the Park District had chosen that site, was there are railroad tracks at the entrance off of 25. What governs the changes to that crossing? I know it's not huge traffic, but when vehicular traffic change or pedestrian traffic change there, what's going to trigger improving that intersection? Whether it be turn lanes that the state will have to approve because it's a state route, that's IDOT, and then I don't know what would govern that as far as when does that have to have gates and sidewalks and everything else, if there's all of a sudden going to be that much traffic and pedestrian potential at that site. Because I know going backwards out of that, or I shouldn't say backwards, going east out of that, the traffic that will be generated from this, it's not like truck traffic that'll have to go back out onto Route 25 that can't go into the neighborhood. This is going to be vehicular car traffic, pedestrian traffic that's going to go through that neighborhood that gets built. So, I mean, to me, that's a huge thing that is going to come in front of us, and you think this place gets packed sometimes. If that happens, it's going to be packed here.
Yeah, as part of any development approval, if, whatever may be required.
Can you speak up, Scott? We have the fan right over us, and I can't hear anything.
As part of any development approval, we would be looking at, what are the impacts with traffic and parking and all that.
Mhm.
So, we'd have to look at that and see if are there traffic impacts going to cause other roadway improvements to be done as part of that project. The railroad is obviously under the jurisdiction of the railroad and the ICC, and so they would have the jurisdiction over if they have to make any improvements to any crossings. Usually it's based on train volume versus car volume, that type of thing. So, that would all be part of that discussion as part of that. And then, I don't know if we would be getting to the point where we'd be looking at signalization of that intersection or not, but if we do, there's a whole slew of things we have to look at with, like, the Prairie and Wilson Street with the interconnect and all that has to happen as part of that too. So that becomes a really big issue if we have to get to that point of putting a signal in there.
Okay. Because I know I've already had that question a couple of times already.
I mean, the history of that subdivision that's immediately to the east of this parcel can be quite vocal.
Right.
You may
Oh, yeah.
remember, we had some other things that wanted to be built there.
One building at the east end of
We
that.
packed the room here.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't surprise me that if this goes to some type of a public hearing, we'll pack the room again.
I was going to say, I think we had 50 people here, and all it was over was how well was it going to be screened from the rest of the neighborhood? Well, if there's nothing there, there's no screening for anything else that happens. If you had a building built all the way at the eastern edge of that property, that in itself would screen the rest of the industrial park from you. And they fought that. I mean, they really fought that. So I think this could be really interesting from our perspective if the referendum passes. Okay. If there are no others, we will move on to executive session. I get a motion for executive
I
session.
just had a quick other, just the sidewalk at Smith Court, the new one that went through. Norma Pierrette reached out and she said it's not being plowed. She doesn't know who is that. Is it the school? Is it us?
So we don't maintain public sidewalks. It is ordinarily the homeowner adjacent to the public sidewalk that maintains it. And we don't require, we don't go out and hand out tickets for people who don't shovel their sidewalks.
So that's why they were asking, because the other school one is done. The one behind their house, which is adjacent to their property, is done by the school, because that's a school one. This is a school one built by the school.
Yeah, the schools have informed us that they're not going to do it.
Build it and they won't clean it.
Specifically.
Sounds like the neighborhood needs to go to the school board meeting.
Oh, I'm sure that's gonna happen.
Absolutely.
I know that's gonna happen.
There'll be a surplus 1435 coming on the market they could use.
See, the benefit of the one going the other way is there happens to be somebody that works at the other end of that sidewalk, and when he leaves in the morning, gets on his quad and just cleans the sidewalk off on his way to work. So going the other way, the sidewalk that I fought for to go all the way through to Walnut Street, that gets cleaned by somebody going through there just on their way to work, which is great. So my guess is that'll probably be what has to happen, is somebody in that neighborhood
I'm
will
sure
have to
school
take it.
board's gonna hear about it.
Yeah, would have to take it on if the school board won't. Okay, now can I get a motion for an executive session for collective bargaining? Motion by O'Brien.
Second.
Second by Meitzler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We go into executive session. There should be no action after.